we have spent many hours and a fair amount of soul searching exploring the meaning and the reality of loving one another. Is willful ignorance of one another consistent with love? We have considered the words and actions of Jesus as the baseline for love's meaning. Thus, greater love has no one than this beyond laying down one's life for a friend. It's a very hard one because, again, it's not something that you can say, oh, we did that, check that box, move on to the next one. Loving people, and what does that look like? Well, Jim alluded to it earlier. There were a lot of our own people that had been ignored. And so that kind of willful ignorance, we didn't believe was an expression of really loving them. And so a lot of the community development work got its start in recognizing that we had been willfully ignorant and dismissive of people who'd been here for a really long time, mostly elderly women, widows. The very people that Scripture even actually identifies by name and says, don't neglect the widows, that we neglected. And so once we started having conversations with each other about what does it really mean to love one another, let's forget about what we think our responsibilities are to people who are coming to the food pantries and the clothing pantries and the furniture giveaways. Let's just talk about folks that we're supposed to really be responsible for here. What would it mean to really love them? The deeper we got into that, the more we saw that there were a lot of things that we had here that really could be used in caring for them, which is, again, as it should be. One thing drives another. So that conversation, and then to what extent do you love someone? I think the quick answer was, we'll just keep going, because if the back end is greater love has no one than this, but they would lay down their life for someone, you haven't gotten there yet. So just keep going with it.
Yeah, this is really where we started with the community development stuff, is just recognizing that Jesus said, they'll know you're my disciples by your love for one another. So we were pretty good at ignoring the words of Jesus. We're good at getting principles, biblical principles, especially out of Paul, but, the words of Jesus were tough. And so recognizing that there were people that we hadn't done a very good job of. In fact, we were doing a better job of loving strangers than we were at loving people we claimed to love.
In the way that we knew how to love.
Yeah. So we were giving away lots and lots of things. But we weren't taking care of the people that we'd been given to take care of. Another part of this is the one another. We had long conversations about one another. Who is one another? Is one another everybody? Or is one another a specific one another? And we recognize that in Scripture, one another is specific to the community of faith, whatever that community of faith may be. It's not everybody in the world, and there is technical language in the New Testament for the others, and Paul certainly uses it. So there's a distinction in Paul between one another and the others, and we found that by learning to love one another, to take care of our own, then we're able to take care of others too. So, and there's lots of ways to do that, and it's kind of our origin right there. Love one another. Still trying to do it, but
Paul will. I'm trying to pull out the exact verse, but where he says, do this for all people. Especially the household of faith. He recognizes that if you're not doing that with your own, you're probably not going to do it with other folks. And that's not to say that we're more important than other folks. It's just to say you haven't practiced very much. You're not very good at this because you wouldn't do it with your own. than how you think you're going to do it with others. And he uses the same thing about talking about various functions within the church. He says, well, if their family's a mess, how much are they really going to be able to work with the church? And it's just that recognition. Of course, we turn all those things into laws and
Some of them we
conditions.
like, some of them we ignore.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, we get to pick.